Hey everyone, welcome back to the Comics Cube. Today we are talking Wonder Woman 84, 1984. And Paul and LaMar and I, our usual Superman group, which is talking Wonder Woman 1984. We're joined by Sam and Lizzie and Monica. So let's get right down to it. I'm going to go in a clockwise direction. First impressions, what did everyone think of the movie? Sam.
Okay, I wanted to like it a lot more than I did. Um, I can't even deny it wasn't as good as the first one. I think the acting was really great. I think that Kristen Wiig knocked it out of the park as a in her role, and I think Gal is just magnificent. But there's a lot to unpack, and I'm really looking forward to talking about it with you guys because, oh man, there are so many issues. There's about an issue for everything I liked about it.
Lizzie?
I would say same. I think I was a little bit more charmed by it. I particularly liked the ending of it, which, not to get too spoilery, I felt like the ending was very deft. I wasn't real excited about the whole kind of rom-com vibe that it had. I definitely wasn't expecting that kind of in a superhero movie, but I thought it was charming. I would definitely agree that it wasn't as good as the first one. But traditional sophomore slump, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Monica?
It definitely had its charming parts. I think Gal Gadot and Chris Pine have amazing chemistry, and he's just adorable. He just, I like watching the two of them together, and I agree with you, Sam, that I love Kristen Wiig, period. I've seen her in a number of serious roles, and she can just kind of do anything. But Pedro Pascal, I don't know. All I kept seeing was his wig and him going every 2 seconds. I don't know, but I feel like the script let them all down.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
LaMar?
I think that this is one of those movies that the quality of the movie hinges on the performance of the actors and the actual like set itself, like, because I think the script left a lot to be desired. You know what I mean? So the actors and the actresses, they maximized like pretty much everything because they had to nail everything, and you can kind of feel it when you watch the movie and stuff. The other problems that I have, or just my other feelings about stuff, we'll get into it later. So I'm gonna just kind of leave it at that. But yeah, the main thing that stuck out for me was the performances were great, pretty much all the way around.
Hey, Paul, what's up?
Yeah, I really liked it. I probably enjoyed it more than the first one, even though the first one is probably objectively better. I think the first one's a lot less flabby than this one. I think if you could say anything about this one, it could probably be trimmed down a bit. But having said that, I just kind of really enjoyed it, all of it, and I enjoyed being around the characters. So the bits where not much was happening, kind of didn't bother me that much. And I liked how earnest it was, and I like that about the DC films generally. They're very committed to the bit. Everyone in it, there's no winking at the cameras. There's it's always like sort of everyone on board is taking this seriously, kind of thing, and that kind of like has the effect of adding to the whole sort of ridiculous, over the top feel with many of the other DC films. But with this one, it kind of added to the sort of the overall goodness of it, the sincerity of it. And I really like that because it was a very sort of simplistic message. So I think you needed to have everyone concerned committed to it 100%. So I really enjoyed it. It was lovely.
Yeah, I liked every scene where she was Wonder Woman. So like, 1/5 of the movie. That's that's my quick review. Let's talk about her being Wonder Woman to begin with. Like we didn't really see a lot of it in the first movie. I mean, there was her in No Man's Land, and then there's later on when she's fighting Ares, and then this one, there's that scene in the mall, and then around an hour later, we get to her, suiting up, starting to get depowered. She's pretty much Wonder Woman for the rest of it. What did you guys think of the way she was depicted? Because I personally loved the batshit insanity that was her lasso. I thought that was fun as hell. Like her just swinging off clouds and lightning bolts. And I know some people are like, how does that make any scientific sense? I was like, it doesn't have to. It's a magic lasso.
Right.
Right.
The lightning bolt in particular, I looked over and was like, oh yeah, that's good stuff right there.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Someone was having a go at Gail Simone on Twitter because she liked the film, and someone was saying like, "Oh, the lasso doesn't make any sense." How? And Gail Simone's like, "Yeah, it was made by a god." It's like,
right.
And somebody was also having a go at Gail Simone last night because she was like, "Oh, Wonder Woman's not like any other superhero," and then some guy goes, "She's literally the female equivalent of Superman," and we're like, "Do you know who you're talking to? That's Gail." Are you okay, dude? And then some other guy was like, "Why is she flying?" Because she flies in the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, I forgot about that.
The flying?
I forgot about that. So when she finally sort of steps into herself and, lets herself fly and lets go, it was kind of, I liked it a lot. I did. Like there was nothing silly or over the top about it. I was like, oh, that's right. She flies. Yeah. So it was like it was really sort of like a triumphant thing, and it came off the heels of I cried. I'll be honest with you guys. Like when she renounced her wish and she let Steve go, I was like, I cried a little bit because I'm a sucker for that stuff. So it was a really great moment for her to discover her flight, like right after that.
Some Superman vibes there, right, LaMar?
Yeah, no doubt. That kind of stuff, like, I'm known for saying that cheesy is not a pejorative to me. It's just like the state of something. So when things like that happen, like I love it, man. I thought that was dope. That she had that moment, and then she kind of remembered what he was saying about, how he flying the planes and stuff, and she was like, I didn't really get it. She was like, I didn't get it. Like it's just something about it I don't understand with you and flying. You know what I mean? And then he kind of explained it to her, and she kind of took the inspiration from that to kind of expand her power. So that was one of my favorite parts in the movie, just their interactions. Because you see this woman and this man, and they obviously inspire one another in different ways. You generally don't see that kind of stuff in movies like this, like because one character or the other becomes a plot device. You know what I mean? So, but they're both definitely characters, and when they're on screen together, it's always great.
What do you think, Monica, of the way she was the way her powers were depicted? Or
I thought the out of control lasso powers were amazing. I love that. I love the fight scene. Was that in the White House? Was that? Yeah. That scene was great, and I mean, I have no problems with it. I mean, it's a comic book character, and like Paulie said, the lasso is made by a god, so I thought it was amazing. I also really loved the flying scene too. That was just, and her using the lasso to swing from the lightning bolts was just, that was so cool. So I had no problems with the over the top stuff.
Yeah, that was one of the things for me is like, so the movie starts with that scene in Themyscira which is a great scene. Like in both movies, I think Themyscira was a highlight. Could have done without a little bit of the over choreographed jumping. I feel like I there are some Snyder prints all over that.
The over choreographed jumping.
But then after that, it's this scene in the mall from what is not Stranger Things, but and
That's actually, I grew up near DC, and that's Landmark Mall in Alexandria.
Really?
Yeah, it closed in, oh wait, it was Commander Salamander, but we'll get to that. Commander Salamander closed in 2010, but I think Landmark Mall closed just a few years ago.
really,
So that was all I actually went to when I was young. But they made it look more 80s, definitely.
that's incredible because I lived in Alexandria. Maybe I was in that mall once.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's, yeah, I looked it up, but yeah, I mean, obviously they made it, added a lot of very 80s colors and stuff. But yeah, because I saw an article about it the other day and they said Landmark Mall. And I was like, whoa.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that whole scene in the mall. I mean, like, I feel like they were channeling some 80s cheesiness, and like LaMar says, it's not a bad thing. I think, and but it was like,
Nostalgia.
yeah, I mean, but it was like a shift in tone between those first two scenes, and I was like, are they going to balance out these two tones for the entirety of the movie? And then they added a third tone, which was a rom-com, and I was like, I don't know where this movie's going at this point.
yeah.
That was interesting.
What I liked about the mall in particular was, like you said, it was very sort of, you could say it was cheesy and 80s in tone, but it was just in tone. There was none of this like sort of pop culture references to emphasize we're in the 80s. I mean, I think you had like Steve in his bum bag and making a reference to parachute pants or something. And that was it. You know, it wasn't a load of new romantics going past the screen and, you know.
I'm gonna go ahead and say the 180s reference that they really should have gone with in 1984.
Oh yeah.
But that's what I mean. It wasn't
Glaring-
like, you know,
glaring
Wonder Woman
omission.
stopping the action to pick up a Rubik's Cube. You know, remember the past? You know, and again, that goes towards this sort of like this earnestness that it had about it. There wasn't like it wasn't like, I think sometimes films like this use humor as a bit of a safety net. It is important to have humor in films like this, and it can work so well. But I think a lot of films use it as a bit of a safety net, a way of saying to the audience, don't worry, we're not taking this seriously. You know, you're all right, you know. And this film never felt the need to do that. And I admire that about it, you know.
Yeah, it really committed to that whole thing. It really did.
Yeah.
I kind of
but
wish, yeah, good.
I was going to say about the mall. I don't know. The whole movie to me seemed, it was a very sanitized version of the 80s. I mean, it kept all these scenes of all these different places, the mall, Georgetown, all these different places just seemed very sanitized and clean for the film. I mean, I hung out in DC constantly. I mean, I was 16 in 1984 and I was hanging out in Georgetown and going to clubs with a fake ID. But you know, there were, I mean, just the people, they should have had a better diversity of people in the various scenes. And I was just a little disappointed I didn't see more punks, you know, and I don't know, because when I think of 1984, I think of a bunch of new wave people, punks, you know, having a punk walk by you and getting a face full of Aquanet scent. You know, I don't know. That's just my experience of 1984. So I felt like they whitewashed it a little too much.
It's true. The hair was definitely not tall enough. Like, you know, it was here and it needed to be about here. So
Yeah, and some movies will overdo it where all the women have mall radar. But I wanted to see a few, you know.
Right.
I just, you know.
Right.
So that, and then the little cameo of Commander Salamander on Wisconsin Avenue in Georgetown. I mean, I didn't at first. I thought they were like in a a Claire's, and then when they walked out and it's a Commander Salamander, I was like, that is not what Commander Salamander looked like in 1984. You know, they wouldn't have had a guy looking like that just hanging out at the counter. I mean, anyway. You know, I was happy to see Commander Salamander there.
I'm gonna throw this out there too. The first movie was set in 1914, but every time World War I, but every time I've spoken about it in between now and since Wonder Woman 84 came out, I kept on thinking it was World War II, because in the first movie, that is clearly the movie they wanted to portray.
Right.
And you could kind of tell that the only reason that they didn't do it was because that's Captain America's thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not World War I. I mean,
Right.
Right.
and because I kept on saying like 40 years later, she's still not over Steve Trevor. And I realized I was wrong. It's 70 years later.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I don't really agree with the message that 70 years later, she's still not over Steve Trevor. I feel like that's a really not good message to send. What does everybody think?
I kind of agree, but I mean, I agree that it's not a good message for someone to harp on love for 70 years, but I think it also speaks to how powerful her concern for other people is, because after 70 years she had him in her hands, like, here he is. She'd give up her powers and stay forever, but she knew that wasn't, like, this isn't how it's supposed to go. So for 70 years to be, you know, so stuck on the love that got away, only to end up letting it go, I think that might be the reason, like, that might be a testament to who she is as a person, because what she did was selfless ultimately.
Yeah.
And also the message of the film is that she shouldn't be hung up on him after 70 years.
Right.
Like Steve says to her, like, yeah, you
He
shouldn't.
says, move on.
Yeah.
Oh, did that break your heart when she was like, I'll never love again? It's like, no, only not you.
But again, is she basically immortal? I mean, how long
Yeah,
will she live?
she's
Yeah.
immortal.
Because I mean, if you're immortal, is 70 years even really that long to you?
Right. Agreed.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's true. That could have just been the blink of an eye for her.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I was
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking, like, it's a lovely example of, maybe if I have got a problem with the film, it's that it's got these lovely little simplistic narratives in it, like, oh, she was in love with this guy for 70 years. It's kind of fairy tale-ish, you know? And then at the end, the ending is sort of quite simplistic. It's like truth will save you, and it's better to be truthful than whatever else is going on, you know? And so it's quite these nice little simplistic narratives. And the film's so colorful and fun. And I just think, like, and I think there's one swear word in it, you know? Steve says shit, and that's it. And I think there's there's blood in it, but it's not gory. And it's not even as scary as the first one. You know, Ares is quite scary and Dr. Poison is quite scary in the first one, but there's none of that. So I think if this film wasn't bloody 2.5 hours long, it'd be great for kids back, you know? And like, that is literally the only thing stopping it being like a really good kids film, is that it's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what kid's sitting through that?
It's so long. I took a break watching it.
Like, I liked it, you know, I don't mind sitting through it for 2.5 hours, but I'm just thinking, like, God, you could have made this for kids easily.
Right.
This would have been a U, or whatever the American version of a U is. I don't know, what is it? What do you guys say? Like an all age.
Guys, what's a U?
A G.
a G, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the rating.
You,
It's like, what is
Like, are we talking about sheep here? Like, I don't know.
yeah, U is universal, and it means it's for all ages. That's the rating.
Okay.
So it's a G,
Right. G. Yeah. G.
Mhm.
But it could have been that, you know.
In
quite
marketing
easy.
terms, it's called a 4-quadrant movie.
Okay.
It's like you've got like adult males, adult females, young males, young females. That's the 4 quadrants in marketing terms.
And you know, I'm not one of these people who are like all superhero films should be exclusively for kids. You know, I'm not saying that at all. You know, I'm happy that there's films for adults and there's film for kids and there's films for everyone. I think there's so many superhero films that you've got something for everyone at the moment, and that's great. But it's just that this film is so close to being a film for kids that it's just a bit like, well, why didn't you just trim a bit and make it a film for kids? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I probably paused it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And then, you know, normally, like when a movie really grabs me, like I can remember watching the Lord of the Rings films and they just went by in a flash.
Yeah.
You know, you're there for 3+ hours or whatever, and then it's over and it doesn't even seem like you moved because you were
Right.
just so engrossed. And I just kept losing focus on this.
But is that partially because we were watching it in our living rooms versus at a movie theater? Like for me, I know it was really distracting to have, you know, all this stuff to be like, oh, I'm going to go heat up some gyros because I'm hungry. In a movie theater, obviously I can't do that. I can't pause it and be like, oh, hey, I'm going to go rustle up a snack or something. I
You
definitely
could go out and buy some popcorn.
Right. Yeah. But like that takes real commitment. Like you really have to be like, okay, I really want popcorn or this movie really sucks for me anyway, to get up and walk out of the theater. There's only one movie I've ever done that, like that I've walked out and been like, nope, we're done here. And
What movie was it?
it was AI. The Haley Joel Osment, an ex-boyfriend drugged me to him. He did not last long either. Like that, the whole thing was just like, no, we're done here. Let's just wrap it up.
The only movie, quick digression, the only movie I've ever been in where people walked out, I was in Boston. It was Spider-Man 3.
Oh yeah.
Like people stood up and walked out while Tobey Maguire was breaking up with Kirsten Dunst on the bridge.
Right, and the dancing and the whole like goth, you know, yeah. Ugh, so
It's the
bad.
only one.
It's a very Barbara Minerva story arc he goes through in Spider-Man 3, isn't it?
Good one. Good
There's
way to
some
tie.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Can I just say, before we get to the cheetah, I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial. I effing hate Steve Trevor.
Oh,
He's so annoying. I hate him so much.
He is not the worst Chris, though.
No,
I mean,
no. But
He
he
could have been forced to watch Chris Pratt for 2.5 hours.
no,
Yeah.
but he is
So-
the most boring Chris.
He is. It's sad too because he's really handsome. He's really charming. Like, I'm a Chris Pine fan going back to Ella Enchanted.
Right.
Was it in no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Ella Enchanted, it was the Princess Diaries
Oh yeah.
part 2.
Yeah.
He's such a sweetheart. He's such a cutie. But there's something undynamic about him.
Yeah, I was saying like if they were on a number line, you've got Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth right here, probably neck and neck. Chris Hemsworth wins. Chris Pratt's over here on the negative side.
Yeah.
Chris Pine is a
Does he
big
though?
fat
Does
zero.
he though? No.
I will say,
No,
I like-
no, I will never concede to that. Chris
Okay, he's a
Pine,
1.
He's redeemable. He's redeemable. Chris Pratt, no.
Yeah. Definitely.
Chris
I
Pine,
would accept Chris Pine as the new Star-Lord. No, that's not true.
Yeah, Monica.
It's not true at all.
I think the Chris Pine Steve Trevor is a lot more exciting than the Steve Trevor from the 1970s Linda Carter Wonder Woman
Sure.
show.
Yeah.
He was handsome, but he was just like cardboard.
He was paint drying.
Yeah.
And until recently,
So
he was
maybe-
cardboard in the comic as well. You know, he's always been, until about 2011, he was pretty boring in the comic, like, you know.
Yeah, I
Which
think-
honestly is kind of refreshing. Like it's nice to have the dude just be the prop, you know, instead of
Yes.
the beautiful woman in the background, you know, always coming in and out. Like it's refreshing to have somebody as handsome as Chris Pine just be a plot device, basically. That's nice. I can get behind that.
I think my problem with both Wonder Woman movies has been like, I paid to see Wonder Woman. I didn't really pay to see Wonder Woman co-starring Steve Trevor.
Right.
And in both movies, he makes the sacrifice. He sacrifices himself. He's even in this one, he's the one who's trying to convince her, like, oh, it's gonna be okay. And she needs to be convinced to renounce her wish. And I'm like,
But that is
no,
sacrifice.
you should come up with that yourself. You're
But
Wonder
that's
Woman.
her sacrifice. That I know that Chris Pine is absolutely falling on a sword in both movies.
Right.
But it is her sacrifice. I mean, let's be realistic. Wonder Woman is not like, if she truly didn't know that she had to give up Steve,
Mhm.
Steve would have still been there, because no one's gonna tell Wonder Woman what to do. Period. Like, you know, so that is her sacrifice, being able, because clearly, and I don't know how true this is to comic book canon and everything, but Diana / Wonder Woman has this immense capacity to love, and she gravitates toward it. That's how prevalent that trait is in her. She gravitates toward it. So there's Steve, and Steve isn't just some, you know, some drunk that harassed Barbara Minerva in a park. Steve he's gallant, and he's smart, and he is so ride or die with her that she's like, let me keep him forever. And I know maybe I'm coming off as a little being a little stereotypical, but I feel like in many ways women are like that, where women are very protective and very much, we gravitate towards and we grab what we need. And it's always ultimately our sacrifice. You know what I mean? Like, how many times has Monica or has Lizzie walked away from something because maybe it was the best thing in her life, but it just wasn't what everybody else needed. Like, it wasn't going to work with everybody else. You know what I mean? So I mean, I know what you're saying about Steve falling on the sword, but I hope that it wouldn't overshadow what is ultimately Wonder Woman's sacrifice.
See, I think my issue with Steve goes back to the first movie. I never really bought into her being into him, because
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay.
because he's literally the first man she ever meets.
That's true.
And,
That's true.
Very
and
your
let's
high
be
school
honest, for
boyfriend,
most of the
right?
first movie, he's a jerk to her.
Yeah.
And I'm
But
like,
he
why do you
also
like
does-
this man? Why do you like this man?
He also does a really good job of kind of exemplifying that aspect of humanity for her. And I think that kind of harkens into the second movie too. Like, he's kind of showing her, because she's a god, obviously, basically, essentially. And so it's kind of a way for her to access that humanity and kind of access that vulnerability. And I think that's the whole idea of Steve Trevor, is this is a good example of humanity here. And I think that's also why sometimes he comes across as a little one note, because essentially he's there to represent, you know, the fragility and loss and not being able to hang on to things. That's the whole idea behind him.
I get you, but isn't there just like another better Steve that's played by a Chris that we can compare him to?
I'll tell you why he's so divisive. Why Steve Trevor is so divisive, because he's not Steve Rogers.
Right.
Steve Trevor is Hal Jordan, and that's why some people hate him, and that's why some people love him, because he's Hal Jordan. And it's very interesting that this movie was co-written by Jeff Johns, because I don't
It
think
was?
there's any. Yeah, it was co-written by Jeff Johns. Yeah, and I don't think there's any point now having Hal Jordan in another Hollywood film,
Right.
because they've done him. Steve Trevor is Hal Jordan, like, you know, pretty much. Like that bit, the bit where it struck me the most was that really funny bit where they're about to steal that jet, and Steve doesn't know about radar yet, and he's like, oh, the way I fly, they'll never find me. Yeah. And that's such a line, like, you know, and that's why I love him, because he's Hal Jordan. And it's weird that this is a coincidence, but it's interesting in retrospect. In the 70s, in the comics, they were going to have Hal Jordan and Diana hook up, and they backed out at the last minute because somebody wrote in and said, shouldn't Hal Jordan and Diana hook up? And so it would look like they'd be stealing it from this reader if they did it. So they didn't do it in the end. And I think the only reason they were doing it is because they were literally the only Justice Leaguers who didn't have a partner at the time. So they were like, oh, let's get them together. But in retrospect, it's really interesting that that was in the works in the 70s. Now that in the films, for all intents and purposes, they have put Hal Jordan and Diana together. And but yeah, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent there, but I think that's the root of Steve Trevor's divisiveness.
I'm going to turn that over to the Jeff Johns Hal Jordan fan, LaMar.
I kind of like, I can see that. Like, I think it's obvious, right? That, you know, Steve Trevor just naturally, like, it's almost like, even to a greater degree than the first movie, Hal Jordan's personality was imprinted upon him. Like the part where they're going back to the plane part where they were talking about, he was trying to figure, he was like, wow, y'all got planes that can fly all the way over here in this amount of time and stuff like that. And so he's starting to bristle once he figures out the technology has gotten to some place that he didn't know it was. So then she was like, yeah, we can hop on the jet and we can go do this and all that. And he's like, no, I ain't riding no airplane. I'm gonna fly it, right? He was like, no, that's what's gonna happen. I'm flying the airplane. I'm not riding in one all the way over there. So, and when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's Hal Jordan right there, right? You know, so he has all of these things that he's not sure about, and he has these other things that he's always been sure about. And so he employs that to a degree that's, it's very, honestly, it's very endearing when you think about it, because that's a very human quality, you know. So we go back to him being played against, you know, Diana's divinity, and he's just a normal person. They did that really, really well because they had to play up those traits and attributes of Steve. And I understand that that's something that a lot of people just don't like about him, you know. But and I get that, you know, because it's not for everybody. But you know, it's just a very human trait. And I think that when you have these human traits and the character's built for that, you got to kind of play it up when you have a character like Wonder Woman and he's standing beside, because you never really get the impression that Wonder Woman is really superior to him, and you don't really get the impression that he's superior to her. So obviously they don't see each other that way. And so I think doing it that way, it was necessary, I think.
Did you guys like the scene where Steve was doing the little 1980s fashion show?
Yeah.
See, 80s fashion, like, to me, that's an oxymoron. Like, that was an assault on my senses for the entire movie. My eyes were bleeding. I was like, no, this is awful. Why did you have to set it in the 80s?
Were you, I have no idea how old you are, but were you like around in 1984?
Yeah, I was 3 in 1984, so.
See, I just, like I said, I was 16 in 1984. So I have, you know, those fashions just, you know, I'm nostalgic for it. But that scene was just, some of those outfits were ridiculous. And like I was laughing my ass off at the parachute pants part, because I had a pair of parachute pants in junior high and they were yellow. Oh, you know, but I thought it was cute. And then I thought it was cute how at the end, the body shows up and he had on the same
body
outfit.
shows up.
Vessel.
No, I mean, fun.
The host.
I mean, the skin suit shows up in the same outfit, you know, with that low slung belt. Cause that's what we did. You'd have your pants on and then you have
up to here.
A purely decorative belt, you know, that hung down over your hip, and lots of scarves. And so, and
and the shoulder pad.
But I liked the little fashion show. I mean, that was Chris Pine being cute.
If only he wasn't the most
Yeah,
boring.
that was my favorite line, the parachute line. He's like, "What? Parachute pants? You mean people are actively parachuting?" That was my favorite.
I know.
Yeah, so we're gonna get back to Steve Trevor at some point in this talk because certain criticisms of the movie revolve around a key plot point involving Steve Trevor. But let's talk about the villains first. What do you guys think of Maxwell Lord and Barbara Minerva? Monica.
I thought Barbara Minerva was great. Max Lord, not so great. And again, I mean, I love both the actors. But I don't know, Max Lord just was very one-dimensional. And I mean, I know they tried to make him seem more sympathetic by having his little son there, but just their relationship just didn't seem genuine to me. I don't know. I wish they had chosen a different villain, but Barbara Minerva was great. I had issues with her transformation, but we talked about this earlier. You know, starting out, she's this doctor. She's a doctor working in the Natural History Museum in DC. You know, that's a pretty posh job. And she's super smart, but the character's suffering from that trope of the super smart woman with the glasses who gets ignored, whose boss doesn't even remember her name. And that just drove me nuts. And then as she gains her powers and changes her hair and puts on a little short, sexy skirt, suddenly everybody's paying attention to her. And so that drove me nuts. But, and she, again, I love Kristen Wiig, but I thought they could have done more with the character. You know, she just kind of, I mean, obviously they set her up as being an angry woman because she's being ignored. And good Lord, the men in this movie, they were so, hey babe, hey babe, hey babe, you know, these harassing men just drove me nuts, you know? I mean,
Do you think they went over the top with it?
absolutely.
Because virtually every guy in this movie hits on one of the two of them.
Predator.
It's a sexual
Yeah.
predator.
It was just, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. But so obviously they were setting her up to, you know, have a lot of anger internalized. And so that scene where she truly discovered how strong she was and she beat the crap out of that guy for the second time, you know, and I don't think she killed him. Did she?
No, she didn't.
Yeah. But you knew she had lost her humanity when that other homeless friend of hers was like, Barbara, what are you doing? You know, and she was just like, you know, and she storms off. I just, I don't know. I thought they took it a little too far with the angry woman trope. I don't know.
See, that's interesting to me because in my mind, I was like, is that supposed to make us realize that she's gone off the edge? Because that guy should get beaten up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely.
I'm not mad that she did it.
No, I mean, but any woman who's been harassed like that, I mean, we all have fantasies of wanting to beat the crap out of those kinds of guys. And I don't know. I guess it served a purpose, but again, I just have issues with once she got her powers, she just seemed to lose a lot of other things too. And apparently, I mean, I haven't read a lot of the comics, but in the comics, even when she's Cheetah, she's still highly intelligent.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just wish they would have let Kristen Wiig actually act a little bit more and add a little more nuance to the role.
Little bit of trivia. Do you guys remember the last superhero movie where they went with a whole trope of the ignored female scientist who becomes a supervillain? I feel like, Paul, you would know this.
Well, it made me think of Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns, but she wasn't.
A little bit more recent.
Isn't it a woman who becomes like a female Doc Ock or something? What was that?
No, it's Poison Ivy in Batman and Robin.
Oh, Oh yeah. I thought
No.
there was one more recent. Anyway.
No, it's a
not-
female scientist, but it's not because she's ignored. She's just an evil scientist in Spider-Verse.
Mm.
Scientists are evil, is the takeaway.
I mean, really,
comic book movies.
we
yeah.
all know that. You know.
Yeah, I mean, no wonder we hate science so much in modern society. Sam, what do you think of the villains?
So it wasn't until after the movie that I realized that Max Lord was played by Pedro Pascal.
The Mandalorian.
And yes, I thought that it was as a role, it was a serious injustice, because like, am I wrong, or is Pedro Pascal a much better actor than that? Like, there wasn't a whole lot to Max Lord. He was all surface. He was all surface, and it almost didn't make sense, because for me, it's like, okay, you're this guy who everyone thinks is a loser, will amount to nothing. Okay, I'm there, I get that. But how do you go from, I want to own all of I want to have money, to now I'm trying to take over all the oil reserves in the world, and now I'm choosing the most, like, he goes so far off the deep end, which I realize I just spoiled a little bit there, but he goes so far off the deep end without enough development as a character. And also I agree with Monica that the relationship between him and his son was more awkward than it was genuine.
Yeah.
As far as Cheetah goes, so I have mixed feelings about her, because like I had mentioned to you, Dewey, didn't Barbara become Cheetah in a different way? Like, wasn't she wildly manipulated and abused by the person who made her Cheetah? That,
I think it was a god that
for
made
a 2.5 hour movie.
Like, yeah, but it was
It might have
still
been a scientist. It might have been a scientist. I don't remember the comic.
either way, it's treated as a curse,
but-
and in this one, she's just like, I want to be an apex predator, and then she turns into a
Yeah.
cheetah, and she's
She's
completely
wicked.
cool with it.
Oh
Are
my
you
God.
okay?
Right. Yeah. No, it's
Could have been a
disturbing, because
shot.
like,
It could have been worse, you know.
it could have been so much. It could have been a better character. It could have been better character development, other than her just deciding, you know what, I'm gonna be not only do I want to be pretty and popular, now I want to be a fucking mutant, because that wasn't enough. So it was a little scary, but yeah, I don't know. I liked it, but at the same time, there were those little things that were just too much. That wasn't it wasn't super interesting or dynamic, and more could have been done with Cheetah, and I feel like they didn't. I feel like they missed the mark.
I agree. And personally, I think my thing with the villains is that they focused on the wrong one. Barbara was the much more interesting villain than Max Lord.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I will say that it being Max Lord gave it, for the people who have read that particular comic, it gave it that added edge, because in the comic she kills Max Lord. So I'm like, oh, is she gonna do it here? Which of course she doesn't do, because no. Like, and so I don't even know why I really considered it. But with Cheetah, yeah, it was like, I think it was the hour and 50-minute mark before she finally fights Diana, and I'm like, this took too long to get to this point.
And there wasn't a whole lot of lead up to it either, I don't think, because all that was happening was Barbara was being super catty behind Diana's back, like, you know.
That's a good pun. I'm glad you went there.
She was being super catty. Like, she would talk to her on the phone and then get off the phone and be like, oh, okay. And it was pretty high school. It was pretty high school of her to do. There was no heat leading up to that fight, although the fight was spectacular. I loved the fight. The fight was great, but
the fight scenes in this movie
yeah,
are great. No complaints on the action scenes.
Yeah, right. But just the lead up where it didn't seem like they had a whole lot of problems, and then all of a sudden Barbara's like, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, somebody pointed out to me that cheetahs are not actually apex predators. They're actually cute and cuddly. So
Cat, but
They're
I just
cats.
alone. Yeah.
yeah,
Cats are cats.
they have like pet dogs or something sometimes.
Yeah, there's actually a
Here in the zoo. Yeah.
zoo at the Richmond Zoo. There's a cheetah, and the cheetah actually does have like a companion it's like a isn't it a golden retriever or something.
It's a yellow lab.
Yellow.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay,
That's so cute.
they grew up together. You know what I mean? So they live in the same pen and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's
Well,
so cute.
so do you think LaMar she should have been a cheetah if she wished to be an apex predator?
No, because cheetahs, because in the wild, cheetahs aren't apex predators. You know. So if
But what do you
that-
think of her being cheetah in
Hey,
this?
you know, I'm gonna tell you something. I agree with you when you said that she was the more interesting villain. So the focus should have been on her. I thought that once she finally transformed into Cheetah, that I thought she was much better as like the in between part where she had Diana's powers, because a lot of that really didn't make much sense. But I guess they were trying to build up to that point, and so I guess they kind of did what they had to do. But I wish the fight would have gone on a little longer, but when you finally have the transformation and stuff. But and once again, you get the crazy whip stuff, which with the lasso, it's like it's a lasso. That's what you do with it, right? But but also, I just want to say, I like Wonder Woman with the lasso only more than I like her with the sword and the shield. Like it's just that just doesn't appeal to me at all. And when she just has a lasso, you get stuff like this, right? Which all of that stuff was great. But Max Lord, it's funny because when I heard Max Lord and she's gonna be in this movie, I was like, yeah, man, this might be dope. But then like the execution, especially in the case of Max Lord, I was like, wow. But because I think he was miscast, honestly. But and then they basically made him like, listen, if you're gonna make the main villain in the movie an amalgamation of Donald Trump and Ricardo Montalban from that's cool with
Yes, exactly.
that's basically what he was. The wig and the wig and everything in the every 15 minutes. You know what I mean? If that's what you want to do, hey, that's cool with me. No problem, right? But yeah, but I just thought like the material didn't serve, because he acted behind off in it, with what they gave him. He did about as much as you could ask somebody, with what they gave him. But yeah, I think that Wonder Woman #1, she had the villains she has are great. So she deserved better villains on screen, and she deserved a better script. The villains that they had deserved more to do, like because there was a lot of stuff they were doing, but it was like a lot of it just kind of was like falling apart, as the movie goes on, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to shift and we're going to do this, and then that falls apart. Then it's like, okay, we're going to shift and do this. Like if you have Max Lord and Cheetah in a movie, there's lots more things you can do with them,
Well, they both get away in the end, so they might
Right.
come back.
And that's the thing. This guy he didn't really have to pay for nothing he did. So and I'm a guy, I'm a stickler for the ending, right? I'd rather watch a movie that's mediocre and then the ending is out of sight than I would a great movie that just rolls off a cliff at the end, right? So yeah, like he just kind of got away scot-free and his kid still loves him. You know what I mean? Like if that would have been my dad, I'd have been like, Dad, you know what, man? You a piece of garbage, man. I'm out. I'm going to stay with Mom. You know what I mean? But yeah, so hopefully
I wish that were an actual line, LaMar.
Right. Right.
Lizzie, tell us about the villains.
So I'm an outlier. I loved Pedro Pascal as Max Lord. I mean, he chewed his way through every piece of scenery that he was in, and I enjoyed that. It was so over the top that it was. I love that kind of thing, like the cheesiness, the showmanship of it, the ultimate con man. I really enjoyed that, and I agree that they didn't really spend a whole lot of time with his son kind of developing that. but I did like the fact that that's how they connected him to his humanity. Because I have children that I've considered, dropping off at the fire station before, like he has it being like, oh my God, why are you still here? So the fact that he, at the end, that's kind of what he connected to realize like that's what's actually important. There are times as a parent that's kind of where you get that, this human is looking to me to be the best version of myself, and I'm utterly failing at it, but you still have another chance, up to a point where they get to be teenagers and they hate everything that you do. But he wasn't there yet. He was still young enough to still like his dad. So I liked the fact that they connected his humanity to his son, and that's kind of the way that they made him human. That was kind of the whole character arc, was that he wanted his son to be proud of him and things, but he lost sight of that with greed and with power. And for both villains, that really was the underlying message, is absolute power corrupts absolutely. Each of them completely went off the rails because they went from being powerless to having a taste of power. And I've seen that happen time and time and time again, just with regular people, that they see that there's more, that they can do more. And so they kind of keep going. I liked that about Maxwell Lord, that was his message, was more. That's a very, very American message as to why give up when you can get more. As an American viewer, I was like, yup, I feel seen and attacked all at the same time. And Cheetah, I really enjoyed Kristen Wiig. I really like her as an actress. I did think the CGI Cheetah really kind of drug me out of it for her, because it was just so ridiculous to go from being this strong woman who was owning the powers and was kind of stepping into it, to a freaking cheetah, weird furry cats kind of thing. Like, no, that's not, I'm sorry.
Which, to anyone watching this, if that's your scene, it's fine. We're not judging you.
Right. I mean, I might judge you a little, but
Lizzy will judge you.
I will. You'll get the stink eye from here. But yeah, I thought the villains were really good. I think they were caricatures in the end. They weren't fully developed characters, but they were caricatures of what happens when you get that power from being powerless. And I felt like, for me, that was enough. I definitely would have enjoyed a little bit more development, but it was already 2.5 hours. So at some point, something's got to go. And if I have to give up character development for an invisible jet and a lasso on a lightning bolt, I'm cool with that.
Man, I would have been cool if they had kept the invisible jets, and not just used it as a one scene joke.
Right.
I would have been.
And flying it through the fireworks, I was like, honey, I know you're a better pilot than that. Like, come on, I know it's an invisible jet, but you can still take damage, right? It's not a magical jet, it's an invisible jet.
I said the exact same thing.
Right.
Yeah, and like with Cheetah, her transfer, I wanted to see, she went from just being sexy, bleached, blonde, normal woman to boom, Cheetah. I would have liked to have seen her transition a little bit more, because usually when a character transitions from human to something not human,
right,
there's more of a struggle and pain and
right,
looking in the mirror and, oh my God, and her, the nails, just, the distended legs. I don't know. It was just too abrupt of a change.
Yeah, that was one of my three main complaints about the movie. That
was that it happened off camera.
That it happens off camera, and I'm not gonna buy that she's cool with it. No, I'm not. It's weird.
Right.
You're an animal now.
If I made that wish and I woke up with a freaking tail between my legs, you can definitely bet I would want to speak to the manager, because that's not what I'm going for here.
Do you think Beast from Beauty and the Beast was all of a sudden really happy that he was a super strong beast? No, he wasn't. He locked himself up in a castle for years.
Yeah.
You know, something that's funny too is you know, this movie was set in 1984, and this is when you had all these horror movies like The Howling and American Werewolf and in London or whatever it was. This stuff, all of those things had these transformation scenes we're talking about.
Right.
There was a time for you to do it. This is the movie to do it in. You know
Right.
what I mean? So, because you now you have the technology, you can kind of up the ante a little bit. So
Right.
I felt kind of cheated out of that because you know the 80s, you know, that was my halcyon days. I was 5 years old when this movie came, you know, in 84. You know what I'm saying? So everything was popping. So, you know, I felt like I was cheated on this. Like 5-year-old me wouldn't stand for this. I'd be down at the movie theater, you know, like Lizzie said, we're trying to talk to somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Me and Lamar is up there. Exactly.
That would have been like one of those things where, you know, she keels over and goes off camera, and then her shadow would suddenly start.
Change,
Like,
yeah.
in that would have been the 80s way to do it. So, Paul, what do you think of the villains?
I really liked them, based mostly on their performance. I thought the performance was great and they looked great. But if I was to be super critical about it, I think they gave the redemption arc to the wrong person. So I kind of agree with everything
Agreed.
you guys said. Because the writers, I think Patty Jenkins has actually said, oh, we didn't strictly mean it to be Trump. And it's like, well, tough, because you're doing a story about 80s greed culture, and we've got the epitome of 80s greed culture in the White House.
Right.
So you are doing a story about Trump, whether you want to or not. You know, you just are.
Right.
So, but you gave Trump a redemption arc. And it's like, that doesn't say anything to me about the world we're living in now. And that's obviously kind of what they were going for, you know, in this, you know, we want more greed is good again. You know, they were trying to say something about the modern world as well. And that's great. But you can't do that if you give Trump a redemption arc, because he is beyond redemption. You know, this version of Trump, Maxwell Lord, loved his son. And we all know that Trump views Junior and Eric as spare kidneys and nothing more. You know, it's earlier on, before we started recording, you guys were talking about how like we should be prepared for 2020 because we've grown up on these supervillain stories. But the thing is that in comic books, supervillains always acknowledge that they've lost. You've defeated me, Superman, but I'll get you next time. Trump doesn't acknowledge that he's lost. So what does Superman do when he defeats Lex Luthor? And Lex Luthor's like, nope, you haven't won. Nope, no, I won. I've won. That's it, you know. Like, how does Superman fight that? How does Wonder Woman fight that?
Coming to a Superman movie theater near you.
Yeah.
Right? I want to read that. I want to see it. How do they handle it? Can we have a blueprint, please?
And normally I'm like, I hate it when people say on the internet, oh, I wish the story was this instead of what it was, because I think that's quite dishonest criticism, because it's like, well, it wasn't this story. It wasn't the story in your head. It was this story that they told. But in this case, they suggested the story by bringing up this 80s greed thing and making him look like Trump. They suggested that story. And you can't give Trump a redemption arc, especially when there was a character right next to him that was so much more deserving of a redemption arc, Barbara Minerva.
Yeah.
Because, you know, because you saw Maxwell Lord being horrified by what he was becoming. It's like, oh, my health is going, I'm going through this transformation and it's freaking me out. And you see that happening to him. And like you guys just said, it would have been so much better, I think, to see Barbara Minerva going through that transformation and her kind of having that moment saying, what have I become, you know? But she pretty much goes evil straight away and remains evil.
Yeah, she walks right into it.
Into a cat.
And that's a really good point, because Maxwell Lord did it on purpose. Like he was going after it. Whereas Barbara, it was more indirect because she made that wish and she had absolutely no idea what was attached to that. When she wished to become like Diana, all of these powers and things started manifesting. She had no idea that that's what her wish was. Whereas Maxwell Lord, that was his choice. Like that was the whole idea behind it.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody who will say like, this character is evil, so he deserves to suffer, you know? But I haven't got a problem with a redeemable baddie. I have no problem with that. But if you're going to suggest the story of Trump, which they do, you can't do the redeemable baddie story because he isn't redeemable. And so if you're telling this Diana going up against Trump, then you have to be honest about, well, how does Diana deal with Trump? And I don't know the answer to that, but let's explore it, Whereas what we got was this simplistic narrative, which was lovely, but you're not saying as much about the modern world as you think you are,
It just astounds me whenever something like gets through to the final product like that, because I mean, this movie was made in between 2017 and now, and you're telling me that you didn't intend for it to be Trump? Somebody in the room must have at one point said something like, that's not how people are gonna read it. It's just
Trump
weird. Yeah,
would never renounce his wish.
Right.
We all know that.
Oh my God, for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
For
yeah.
sure.
And the fact that he's been painted by liberals and by the left and right, as someone who could renounce his wish is part of the problem that America's in, I think. Sorry, I'm aware I'm an outsider pontificating about America, and I apologize for that.
No, you got it. You got the number.
Yeah. Yeah.
whoever sits in the White House is an effect on the world. I think we can all have an opinion.
Yeah.
I'm even farther away than you are.
But you lived here once, so
Right.
you're totally qualified.
But so the wish mechanics was not my biggest problem with the movie, but it is the thing that kept on taking me out of the movie, because they didn't really explain how it worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you mean to tell me that all of this is happening and nobody wished for world peace?
Right.
Nobody wished for world peace. How come that kid's wish of his dad just being home just doesn't just happen? Nobody wished for this annoying man on the TV to shut the hell up. Because I would have wished that right away.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, shut up, dude. And
I wish something else was on.
and I hate to say it. But, and I know it's supposed to be inspirational, but if 2020 has taught me anything, people would not renounce their wish.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a lack of being inspirational. It's just unrealistic at this point. I'm sorry. I hate to say it.
Right.
2020 has killed my view of humanity, people.
You shouldn't hate to say it, frankly,
Right.
because it is what it is. It's almost so you're so on point that it almost destroys how everything gets righted in the movie, because you're like,
Right.
no.
Right.
And then a guy literally wished for a woman to drop dead, and there she was. She's getting like CPR on her in the background, and he's just like, and it took him forever to renounce his wish. How did she come back?
Right.
Like, how do you turn that around?
Right. Is there brain damage
So-
that we're gonna have to deal with now?
Right.
Dead immediately.
Yeah, no, it's spot on. It's almost unrealistic.
Right.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, she said it, and she said, I wish y'all would go back to where you came from. And he was like, and I wish you dropped dead. And as soon as she said, boom,
Bam. Yep.
it was crazy.
How did his wish come? How did her wish come true? Like,
They pulled they pulled up outside and you could see them like dragging people into the vans and stuff. So
okay, yeah.
Obviously, she was in like an Irish neighborhood or whatever. So
Yeah.
as soon as she said that, them folk pulled up and was just taking people off the street and and all of that stuff.
And he's hiding, isn't he? Then when you see him again, he's like hiding under a table.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
Monica.
that's a good point.
I was going to say, you said it was made between 2017 and now, but it's almost like somebody could see into a crystal ball to see just how horrible 2020 would be. Because there's, there's so much bad humanity and bad behavior in this film from just the little people, like that guy wishing the woman was dead.
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think my
Yeah.
whole thing was if it took Diana some convincing to renounce her wish,
Mhm.
these people would
Yeah.
not renounce theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly, as you've
Yeah, no, not in the 80s.
somebody like
Certainly not in the 80s.
I mean, as you've mentioned, someone like Trump wouldn't have
Yeah.
done
And
it.
what it did it take every single person renouncing their wish? That was the mechanics that I didn't really understand. Is if one person decided not to, does that mean that Maxwell Lord still has that power? Or is it the collective, enough people renounced the wish to where he was weakened enough? That's where I was like, I don't really get what's going on here with this.
Yeah, that was a big problem. And also, like we were talking about before we started recording, the problem of Steve Trevor being in that other guy's body.
Right.
Where did the other guy go? Were they battling it out inside his body, a la Supernatural
Exactly.
show? Come on. There were just so many.
All that, and Steve didn't even have gas. Like all of that.
You
All that
guys,
drama, he didn't even have bubble gut. Like that's kind of crazy to imagine.
Yeah.
do you guys know what he's
Um,
credited
and what's
as
interesting,
in the credits? What he's
What?
called it? Handsome guy.
Just generic, huh?
That's it.
hot device, period.
But I mean, like, that's another thing too, is like this guy just shows up and repeats a couple of the things that Trevor told you. Like, you just go
Right.
with them.
Right. No, I'm sorry. If somebody long dead pops up and gives me 2 throwaway lines, I'm gonna call the police. I'm gonna call, whoever I need to call. Get away from me. You are obviously crazy. I'm not gonna instantly be like, oh my God, it's my long love returned to me. No.
Wait, what was for somebody refresh my memory? What was it he said that got her to go, Steve?
The
What was it that
time.
he said?
I wish we had more time line.
Oh,
That line. Yeah.
that's pretty generic. I mean, like anybody could look at me and say, I wish we had more time, and it'll trigger like, huh, what?
I mean, if I was,
Thank you.
I would have been like, hey, Diana, remember that time in Themyscira when I was taking the bath? And, he
Right.
brought up something really obscure like that, but.
Right. There was no hesitation on her part. I feel like I would have required a little more proof.
Right.
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 Like even in that movie Big with Tom Hanks, he had to do their special song in order for Billy to calm down.
Yeah.
Why haven't Wonder Woman and Steve got a special song?
Exactly.
Oh, that would have been awesome. It would have to be a Carpenter song in my mind.
Oh yeah.
Oh, another thing that annoyed me, just this is kind of random, but the movie's set in 1984. The lack of iconic music was maddening. I mean, there was that when they were at the party, the fancy party where everybody was all dressed up. I thought that song was Frankie Goes to Hollywood, but it never resolved. And why wasn't there any New Order anywhere in this movie? I mean, but I guess Atomic Blonde got all the good New Order music. But I don't know. I was disappointed in the music.
I do agree,
Really
because
good point.
on one hand, earlier on I was saying like, oh, I'm glad they didn't do these pop culture references. But on the other hand, would it have killed them to play Flock of Seagulls? It's like...
A little in there, right?
There's so much they could have played. Like my memories of the 80s, the mid to late 80s in DC was driving around with my friend Alexandra Katowski in her convertible Rabbit. And we would either be playing like Flock of Seagulls or we actually played a lot of Bob Marley.
Duran.
Yeah, Duran, Bob Marley, occasionally opera because we were weird that way. But yeah, it just, again, the whole film, I don't know. It was pretty whitewashed, and I don't know. They could have, it didn't have as much of an 80s feel as I wanted it to.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm gonna show y'all right now how whitewashed this movie was. I'm gonna put this link in the chat, right? and y'all can go to it. You could read this article, right, from the Washington Post. This was from like 1986, right? So, but basically, I'm not gonna read the whole article. I'm gonna just read an excerpt from it. Now, it's where they talk about the ethnic, how can I put it, the ethnic breakup in DC at the time. And so there's a part in the article where it talks about how these Black families moved into the suburbs and stuff like that. And that happened in the 70s, but by the time you get into the 80s, it kind of stopped. And then you had you had like white people who were moving in. So in this article, they talk about the population demographic of DC. And I'm just going to read this excerpt from it really quickly. It says, Gan Ahuja, district government chief demographer, added that the loss of whites, which slowed in the 1970s after massive drops in the 50s and the 60s, appears to have stopped. He said more whites in their 20s and 30s are staying in the district and having children, though the numbers involved are still small. According to DC government estimates for 1984, there's been virtually no change since 1980 in the city's racial composition, which was just over 70% Black. Now, I ask you, just reading that excerpt, do you see that in this movie anywhere? That's all I'm saying. Right?
I mean, there was that one Black girl.
Yeah, see what
in
Do
the
we?
mall.
y'all know how we do it here.
The
We
little kid.
rainbow style here, because you learn something too. But yeah, none of that is in this movie. You would never know it from watching this movie that was the case. There's no Chuck Brown music. It's no go-go, none of that stuff. The more that we're talking about, that we're talking about this. And you got to remember, DC is a college town. So a lot of cultural things happening even in the 80s, because I used to hear about the stuff that was happening in DC when I was a child growing up in North Carolina. So, and what I tend to think, and I had the same critique of the first movie, there are parts of it that are really tone deaf. And even when you go back to like the no man's land scene in the first one, it was a great moment and stuff, but in a way it comes at the expense of the ethnic characters that are in her group, because they're all kind of like caricatures. And so they're supposed to have these certain skills that pertain in a lot of ways to their ethnicity. But then when it comes to Wonder Woman having these moments, she has to kind of almost step on them. And when you go back and you look at like things like the suffrage movement, and things like that, you see that that's actually something that happened because white women would do that with minorities. So it's something that actually rings true to reality. But it wasn't, I'm not going to say it was intended that way, but it's just that you have that tone deafness in the movie. And with something like this, when I showed you like the population demographic, it's like when you watch them, they even had children like on cardboard, b-boying and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was white boys. You see?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely caught that. I did catch that.
It's like, man, you got to throw me a bone, man. When it's us there, you got to give me something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the scene, like I was telling you, LaMar, in the 80s in Georgetown is very ritzy, the houses there, but then you have the Wisconsin Avenue and M Street, which has all the shops and everything and all the bars, and there were a few clubs and stuff. But when I would see, I'd see these small groups of Black teenage boys, with their cardboard out in Georgetown, dancing and stuff. And that was something you'd see there every single weekend. And then you'd have the kids playing the plastic barrel drums. I mean, there was just tons of music and other activity going on, and cars driving by, blaring all kinds of loud music, and it was just a lot. I don't know. Everything was so toned down. And granted, a couple of the scenes were filmed in Georgetown, and the scene where she was just eating by herself, and that was sort of on one of the back streets in Georgetown. It looked like one of the back streets that was sort of closer to Georgetown University. And that area, a lot of the times you'd mostly see just white people. But as far as like M Street and Wisconsin Avenue there in Georgetown, you'd see all kinds of people. And then also Landmark Mall in Alexandria, you'd see a huge range of people because it's Alexandria, you know, you'd see all kinds of people, you know, all different ethnicities. And, you know, I don't know. I was just disappointed in their lack of representation.
This is the part where I say I used to live in Alexandria.
Yeah. Yes. You know what I'm talking about.
I'm used to Filipinos never being represented, though.
But you know what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you remember, I mean, growing up, don't you? You remember in Alexandria, you'd see every kind of person imaginable.
Yeah, just anywhere you'd go in Alexandria. And especially when you go into DC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, something about that first movie, like LaMar said. I'm just going to point out one of her teammates is a Native American named Chief who uses smoke signals. Okay.
It's cringeworthy.
I read on the internet as well. I read on the internet. I don't know if this is true, but apparently he says something to her in his native tongue at one point, and he basically says like, "Oh yeah, I'm a Native American god pretending to be a human." So apparently he's secretly a god. So,
Maybe he's a pre-existing character.
yeah.
I don't know.
But like, yeah, so I guess like he's even more of a sort of magic native stereotype trope, I guess, you know.
Yeah, we're moving. So back to 84. I think that is the biggest criticism of it thus far has been all about handsome guy. I don't know how this feels, because the first thing that I thought of when it happened was, because I know that they say like, oh yeah, I only see you, but the thing is, like, it's only played by Chris Pine because it's Steve Trevor's soul. To the outside world, in the internal logic of that movie, it's still that guy.
Right.
So
I Only See You is doing a lot of heavy lifting, isn't it?
I only see you, however, your body ...
and it's like, are they okay with basically taking over this guy's life?
Right.
Which honestly, it feels like it could have been easily fixed by just, you know, pulling Steve Trevor out of the moment of his death,
Right.
planting him right
Right.
there in the middle of 1984.
Yeah. I don't understand. It's a freaking magic stone. Why did they have to plant his consciousness into generic 80s dude? You know, like, that whole thing just confused the hell out of me. I was like, I don't get it. This is, because for me, if I made a wish on a magic stone and like Jason showed up in some other dude's body, I'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Obviously, this is not a magic stone. Like, I would know right there, okay, something's gone wrong.
There's a catch here.
Not working for me.
And even if you know, even if we disregarded all the discussions about, you know, all the sexual stuff, which we shouldn't, but even if we did, they put him in danger, don't they?
Right.
Like a billion times.
Right. Right.
It seems very mean to handsome guy, is what I'm saying.
And he didn't even get a name. I mean, at least give the dude a name, you know? Like Johnny. Good job, Johnny, you know?
Johnny 80s.
And I can't help but think, when she renounces her wish and he reclaims his body in the middle of that war zone, what is he thinking?
And does he remember? Does he have any of those memeries? Obviously not, because they're chatting there at the end and he has no idea, you know, who she is and that they've been banging for the last 2 weeks, you know.
Yes.
I don't think he knew anything, only because when Diana asked Steve what he remembered, he said he remembered the plane going down, and then nothing.
Yeah.
So you can only imagine that handsome guy experienced nothing.
Right.
I mean, maybe it was kind of like the effects of anesthesia, like, you know how you close your eyes and bam, surgery's over.
Right.
So it might have just went like that for him. It might have just been like he went to sleep
And
and
woke
then
up in the middle of a war
then-
zone.
So
yeah, right. With like bruises on his arm and his hips, and like, damn, why is my back hurting?
You can. I think you might.
Why
have
do
to,
I feel like I've been flying a plane?
See, Sam, I know you said you cried when she renounced her wish, but I'm going to
did.
throw this at you. Imagine if it had been framed like this. She's walking away and she says, "I renounce my wish," except you can still see him. Imagine that.
That's right, because he supposedly was gone immediately. So
Right.
true. Like, they would have had to. That's why it had to be off camera, because it's like you said, he would have been like, what's happening?
Chris Pine turning into handsome guy, and he'd be like, "What?"
Where are my parachute pants? What am I wearing?
he does seem quite vacuous, so I get the feeling he'd just be like.
Well, clearly he got home safely.
Yeah. You might have to cut this bit now. This bit I'm about to say.
Ooh, fun. Do it.
Have you guys seen Me, Myself, and Irene? That Jim Carrey film.
Yes.
Why am I cutting this bit? It's Paul talking about me, myself, and Irene.
But there's a bit where like Jim Carrey's alternate personality has sex with Renée Zellweger. And then he wakes up in the morning and he goes to the toilet and he's like, "Why am I peeing like I've had sex?" I just imagine that's what handsome guys doing.
Right. If he'd come back at just the right moment.
Yeah.
I saw
and then he
this meme on
Comes to when he
Twitter.
realizes, whoa, I'm way out of my league. Look at this.
Right.
How did I just level up? What did I do?
Obviously, it was magic, dude. Obviously.
I saw this meme on Twitter where it takes that last scene and it's got handsome guy going, "Hey," and then she goes, "Hey, I've seen your penis."
Actually,
That is amazing.
yeah, last night at the end, I was like, I thought she was kind of, when she said hi to him, she had kind of a flirtatious tone, and I imagine her thinking to herself, "Yeah, I've been banging that."
Oh yeah, I know what's up with her. Oh yeah.
I was really cringing at the possibility that she was going to ask him out or he was going to ask her out and they were going to start dating.
Yeah.
I was like, this cannot happen.
Then
No.
What I liked about that scene, I think they played it just right because they teased the possibility that he might ask her out and she might ask him out. And she didn't, and that's good, and that's right, like you say. But I like that the audience were kind of like, is she going to? And it's nice that, oh yeah, it's possible now because she's moved on from Steve. And it was like a nice little way of saying, yeah, she's moving on from Steve.
Okay, dating that guy would be
from
the
a
exact
psychological
opposite of moving on from
Right.
Yeah, not that guy, but I think the fact
Not
right,
that
from a
one.
psychological standpoint, that's pretty problematic.
yeah,
Right.
that is problematic. But I think
It
the
would be
fact that
quite obvious that
Right.
she's dating him because,
because he
That
used to
was
be Steve for a
Steve
couple of weeks.
yeah.
maybe I moved on that.
Also, good job tacking on that ending so we have a Christmas ending, by the way. Anyone else feel that was completely filmed at the last minute there?
Yeah.
It was, but I think it was, but I appreciated it though. It was
I
nice.
didn't appreciate the fake snow in their hair not melting though. That's always, I'm one of the people that will count bullets in films and also notice the fake snow just sitting there.
Right. Not snow, it's dandruff, right? At that point.
Dandruff.
I mean, it's not going to melt immediately on your hair, but if one lands on your forehead, it's going to disappear. I don't know. That's just one of my pet peeves.
And what does everyone think about the end credits there? The mid credits. Little Easter.
Oh, it was so
egg.
fan service. It was so fan service, and I loved it. I loved it.
Did you
Like
all? We,
arms in the air cheer. I loved it.
we haven't talked about her armor yet.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about the armor.
Ooh,
so
yes.
ugly. It was
What
great.
do you guys think? I
Oh,
saw
that's it.
I saw someone on the internet saying the battle with her in the armor versus Cheetah was like C3PO versus Gollum.
That's an apt analogy.
That's yeah. I'll buy
When
that.
saying that, like that wouldn't be awesome.
Like that's a bad thing, right?
But did you all catch the little cameo when Diana was talking about the woman? I've forgotten her name.
Aristea.
That originally wore the armor, and they were showing the scene where she had her wings wrapped around herself and everybody was pounding on her. Did you guys recognize the eyes?
I didn't, but I didn't.
You didn't? Like when the character, when she looked up and you saw those blue eyes?
Yeah, I've never really watched that show though, so
That was Linda Carter.
yeah.
It was?
Yes.
Okay.
Go back and look. Her eyes, just there was a little expression there, and I was like, oh, I was like, oh my God, that's Linda Carter. And that I got really excited about that.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I completely missed that. So
Go back and
You
watch
know-
it. You'll see, because I mean, if you watched the original Wonder Woman series, you'll immediately recognize, and they just show her eyes, but it's definitely her. And that
I did watch the series. I was probably 5 or 6
Yeah.
when I'd first discovered Wonder Woman. And I was an immediate Wonder Woman fangirl for like my whole life. Like I had the Wonder Woman underoos, and I had the kindergarten, the mask that you couldn't breathe through
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
without getting the rash right here.
Right, and the condensation. Yeah.
Yes, right. I had all of that. So I'm actually looking forward to going back and maybe watching it again now that they're doing all of this, now that we're getting such fresh material.
Yeah,
With the new-
I remember my friend Marlena Schwartz and I making the Wonder Woman headband and the bracelets
Oh yeah.
with tin foil and
Yes.
cardboard and tin foil and running around the neighborhood. And we'd either both be Wonder Woman, or occasionally we'd switch off and be Electro Woman and Dinah Girl too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, total,
Nice.
yeah, we got really creative with our little outfits, lots of tiaras, and yeah, it was awesome. But
How
yeah,
often did you almost fall over doing the spin into the transformation?
Oh yeah.
I actually at that time was taking ballet lessons, so I was pretty good. I was
I
Marlena.
did.
The trouble came when we were doing it in our roller skates in her grandmother's carport, which was really slick. So sometimes, we fell over a few times on the roller skates, but
Oh, I hit so many telephone poles just spinning,
Yep. Oh
just
yeah.
spinning.
And you shook it off because you were Wonder Woman, right?
That's
it can't
right.
stop you. Exactly.
That's right. I had the curly
Smile.
hair just
That's
like
just-
Linda Carter. I was proud of me. We got off topic, didn't we? What
No,
were we
that's
talking
cool.
We're
Keep
sorry,
keep
I was
going.
already-
Nah, we never off topic on this joint.
We're never off topic. Yeah, like if you want to go back to the armor, so Diana ends up putting the armor on, and I'm like, I know it's protection, but you don't seem to be able to move in this thing. Like,
yeah, I was hoping to see her fly in it. It's like
A bit,
all the
though.
marketing material had her in this armor, and everybody's like, "Ooh, wings," but she really didn't wear it long, and she
Yeah.
didn't fly.
And it got trashed like really
Yes.
easily because in the scene where they're setting the mythology of the armor, she's getting the shit kicked out of her.
Yes.
And it's not budging. Those guys are not doing any damage, obviously, because it's sitting there ready to go. But then Cheetah's like pulling it off, and I'm like, really? Come on.
But I guess the men were just human men,
Right.
but Cheetah's supernatural.
Obviously, this was a job for a mutant woman. I mean, why send a man when a mutant woman is,
Isn't it always? Isn't it
This is a
always
job
for a mutant
or
woman?
an apex predator.
Yeah, I mean, like, that was a weird train of thought. She comes in and, for her, she comes onto the plane and is like, hey, room for one more.
Right.
And then she's just like, I want to be an apex predator.
Right.
I don't even want to be a girl anymore. And it's like, I don't know how you got there. I don't.
It's like, apparently when wishing, you shouldn't talk in metaphors.
I also like how so far, she's like, I want to be an apex predator, and Max Lord's like, well, so far in the film, everyone's only got one wish each, but sure, why
But
not?
sure, you got one more. Yeah.
Right. Feeling generous.
Yes. I did notice that.
Also, would any of you trade Wonder Woman's powers to be a human cheetah? No.
Hell no.
Oh,
Hell no.
No, right?
No.
Like,
And probably the biggest reason that I wouldn't would be that I would be so inherently cat that Wonder Woman could have easily beaten me by throwing a box down on the floor. And that would have been it.
here's a box, and here's a cucumber.
Dangling your last
Yeah, right. Here's a cucumber, exactly.
I have to find a
My cats
laser
aren't
pointer
great
now.
cucumbers, by the way. That
Plus
doesn't work for my cats.
it's hard to put those frontline drops on your own back once a month.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And
right.
the hairball situation, I mean, come on.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, seriously. As much as I shed in the shower.
Mhm.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. Does the final battle take place on an island?
Yeah, doesn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah.
So,
I think so.
is the cheetah just stranded on an island now?
Well, she was there wasn't she with Maxwell Lord from like where they were broadcasting? It
Yes.
was that
Hmm.
like
Yeah, but he
telescope.
didn't take her back with him, did he?
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
he
he didn't. No.
in such a hurry to get
Diana.
back home.
I imagine Diana would have dropped her off, though. Like, don't do it again.
Good fight.
You're a mutant cheetah now, but don't do it again. Remember, this is 1984, so there's no like superhuman prisons or anything. It's not established yet. And I think one of the reasons that they can't establish anything, or she goes back into hiding after this, is because they have to adhere to what Batman versus Superman set up, that she's basically been in hiding that whole time.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I'll bet you anything they probably wish they planned it better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
That pretty much just sums up, DC in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, that's their new motto. We could have, we
Right.
probably should have done that better.
Probably should have planned a little bit more.
Probably should have planned out the continuity ahead of time for this.
Thinking of Batman vs Superman, there was a really nice callback that only hardcore Snyder Bros like myself would have. I'm not a Snyder Bro, but I do like Batman vs Superman, and I really liked that they had the Hans Zimmer track "Beautiful Lie" from Batman vs Superman playing while she did a little speech to show everyone the truth. They kind of inverted that track in a way. Well, they didn't literally invert it, but they sort of inverted the meaning of that track because it's called Beautiful Lie, and they played it over her telling the truth to the world. And I thought that was quite nice. I really liked that. But, only because I like Batman versus Superman.
What did everyone think of the speech to close it off? Because I was like, really? Speech again?
Now, I really liked that. I thought that was very restrained, because you expect in a superhero movie, you expect the big showdown, right? The Ares, with the tanks and the blowing up and stuff
She
like
gets
that.
a speech then too, though.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't nearly as heartfelt, Dewey. I mean, this was for all the marbles, man. And I thought that really showed kind of the deftness and like Paul said, the earnestness of the movie. That's how they kind of did the final battle with the big bad. It wasn't about strength, and it wasn't about action, and it wasn't about punching. It was about actually connecting to your humanity and understanding, how warped these wishes and how warped power kind of can kind of do to you. So I liked it. I thought it was good. My husband was like, he wanted shit to blow up, and he wanted a lot more action. But I was like, oh, that was really sweet. Like, obviously a woman director did this, because like, no, if it was Snyder, shit would have just been off the screen. Like I enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, I think I was fine with there being a speech, but like the rest of the movie, it was just very long.
It was.
It was a very long speech.
The whole world,
Right.
You can't just say, go on. Oh, go on.
Will say though, her cat eye makeup was on point. in that
Right.
last scene.
Because I mean, there was that tight close up, and I was like, girl, them
I mean,
winkers.
is that part of like, oh, put on the armor? Oh wait, let me do my
Exactly.
eyeliner. You know?
Exactly. Let me get the
Gotta make sure I
scotch
get
tape
my
to make sure we're
crease right.
doing it.
And if you've ever done the cat eyes with liquid eyeliner, it took her a while.
Yeah, that was about the fourth or fifth one easily.
Yeah.
As a male, I always just assume you women wake up with that on your eyes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've been carrying that veil for centuries.
Yeah.
Centuries.
Any more thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984? Anything else you guys want to get out there?
Well, with the way that Lizzy painted that final battle and it being more geared towards finding your humanity versus, being good versus evil, like a physical battle. It was, I guess it was as good as it was going to be in that context. You know what I mean? It was super feelings based. And what I hate often is being told that you're too emotional. Don't,
Right.
you're thinking with your feelings and not with your
Right.
head or whatever. And it always kind of made me mad to say something like that, because it's like, well, why are my feelings not directly, why are they not connected?
Right.
Why wouldn't they be connected?
Right.
So you know what, and to think about that, I appreciate it. I appreciate how they went about Wonder Woman defeating the big bad, although I absolutely agree with Paul that Max Lord wasn't redeemable, and the redemption arc should have absolutely went to Barbara Minerva. I'm definitely going to read more. That comic book we talked about, Dewey, The Lies, I haven't made it all the way through it yet, but I'm looking forward to.
It's like so good though.
It is. I'm looking forward to absorbing more, because there's so much more to Barbara Minerva and Cheetah. Like, that character, there's so much more than was able to make it on the screen. And I think that's probably what might have turned me off when I saw it. And now that's not to say I didn't like it. I liked it. I will always support the Wonder Woman franchise.
Look at that. Look at that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful artwork right there.
It is.
Anyway.
It really is.
Yeah.
So,
I was thinking when you were saying it about Pedro Pascal, Maxwell Lord's character being irredeemable. What if they'd shown his backstory early on in the movie, or maybe even throughout the movie, as opposed to the very end of the movie because putting it in at the very end of the movie is like, oh hey, we didn't set up this guy to be redeemable, but we got nowhere to go here.
Right.
Right. So it's almost disingenuous.
And I wanted to know what the deal was with his son's mother. I mean,
Right. Where was his mom during all of this? Exactly.
I
Would
mean,
you
he was
stay with
just-
him?
He was a terrible dad. Like, you know, when like early on when his one assistant is in there and he's like, he basically says, "Oh, your son is here for the weekend." He's like, "Again? How many times do I have to have it?" It was cringy and horrible.
Right.
Like, would you stay with him if you were dating him? No, you wouldn't, right?
No.
That's why
I
we
got
never
news
see
for
his
you. He
mom.
probably wouldn't. He probably wouldn't even have weekends.
But the
Frankly,
thing is, when they showed his backstory, I mean, obviously he was damaged because of his upbringing. And I mean, I wanted to see more of how he got from that to just being this, you know, evil overlord type. You know, I don't know. There was just, they could have done a lot more with his character.
I didn't get evil from Max Lord.
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all. I got more like
Pathetic.
pathetic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost said a different P word, man, but yeah, we'll go with pathetic.
we're going for PG here.
No, you're right. You're right. He isn't so much evil as just really greedy and just narcissistic and just
Yeah.
And that was my problem.
Completely unaware of the things that matter in life.
But if you're doing Trump in a film, which they were, no matter what they say, you got to make him evil.
Right.
Because he is evil, you know?
Yeah.
So, and, you know, Trump didn't have a poor upbringing. Trump got everything he ever wanted in his life. You know?
Right. And shoehorning those, like, shoehorning the trauma bonding there at the end was cheap. Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, Paul, that's what I was saying. Like, in 2020, you can't actually write any villains better than what we have in the real world.
Yeah.
Like, you literally have a movie and the villain is actually a better person than the man in the White House.
Right.
Yeah.
But even with the trauma bonding at the end, like, you see the dad hit the mom, and I'm like, is everyone in the world who wished that their dads wouldn't hit their moms supposed to renounce their wish too?
Right.
Because I feel like that's problematic, and they wouldn't do it, and I don't blame them.
Right.
And what is up with people wishing for more nuclear weapons? Why can't you just wish for your enemy to not have nuclear
What
weapons?
was that about?
Right. Isn't that the easiest route to go? Hey, I wish they didn't have it rather than I wish I had 1,000,000. Yeah. No.
The leader of the free world, the president of the United States, looked a man in the eye and said, "I wish we had more bombs."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that is
But
what is wrong with the system. Like,
wasn't
you are
he supposed to
literally,
be Reagan,
everything is
though?
wrong with the world. What's happened?
I said, wasn't he supposed to be Reagan? Isn't that
Yeah.
wasn't that the stand-in? So I
Was
mean,
that,
I could
was that the correlation?
and
Okay.
Reagan saying that, I mean, that's not real far off there. So
Yeah, I
maybe
was wondering if that was supposed to be Reagan, because it's
Yeah.
supposed to be Reagan, but
right.
it didn't look like Reagan.
There were all these horrible stereotypes of like the douchey middle-aged white dude who just just like the ultimate stereotype. And then I think a woman wrote this script. It was just so tone deaf and stereotypical.
Right.
But maybe they were making
That's
fun
probably
of them.
why.
I guess they were making fun of them.
Right. That was the
Yeah.
whole idea.
Could be.
Because that was one thing that my husband pointed out. He was like, wow, all these women got like severely harassed throughout this entire movie. He's like, every single guy except for Steve Trevor was a huge dirtbag as far as
Hey,
like,
there was that one guy who worked in the museum.
that one. And
Who
there was
had-
handsome guy who did
He
not.
still had an agenda, though. He still had an agenda. Literally everything he said to her was meant to impress her.
Right.
It's true.
There was no
Fine.
question that he was trying to get in her pants.
Hey,
Right.
there was the other homeless guy.
Right.
Leon, Leon was
Right.
a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
And handsome
Definitely.
guy.
What
But
was that?
handsome guy as well.
Oh, and there's handsome
Right.
guy.
He was
Right.
nice.
Handsome
I
guy was very nice to her at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I was actually talking specifically about related to the bombs. I was talking about these military dudes because they kept showing all these different military guys in different countries, and it was just a bunch of white dudes. I didn't see any women.
Right.
You know, it was just a bunch of white dudes wanting to bomb each other. You know.
Well, it pretty much was 80s politics though.
Yeah.
I was
Hey,
just
that's
gonna
pretty
say, I was just gonna say,
representative of the
that
time.
really does seem on point, though. And I wonder if it's either going, I wonder if that portrayal is either going to, although I think I already answered my own question, if that's going to sit as, you know, it's going to be portrayed as like misandry, or are people going to actually look at what the 80s were about and how we've evolved from that? And like I said, I already answered my question. They're going to be
You know.
misandry.
Exactly. If that's a possible answer, that's gonna be the answer.
Yeah.
But you're also going to have a bunch of people not having any issue with it.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Well, I mean, it was really spot on. I mean, like I was a kid in the 80s, but I had older cousins who were 16, 17, and then like my mom and my mother's cousins, they were in their 30s. And I mean, I was a listener. Like I was a little girl who sat under the table and listened while all the other women talked around the table above me. And it was true to time. It was true to time. Like there are so many, you know, it's like to be surprised that there are so many dirtbags in this movie harassing women and being questionable and problematic. Like that is what it was.
Right. Have you ever been a woman? Because if you haven't, that's really kind of out of left field.
Seriously, I grew up in the thick of it, really.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was also, and I think you were too, Lizzie, you were of that age where it became like where it was crucial to have to dress a certain way so that you didn't invite that behavior.
Right. Exactly. Because
so sorry, babies. I mean,
yeah,
it's gonna feel a little like misandry, honeys, but here's the thing. It was that though.
Right. But
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and it's like as much and LaMar loves the 80s, you know, and I mean I love the 80s for certain reasons, the clothing and the music and stuff. But yeah, it was rough. It was rough to be a woman or a girl.
Yeah.
So, and I guess just those scenes of the angry military men, I guess that stuff just kind of sets me off because it was so horrible and scary.
Right.
Yeah, it really does feel, and it always ends up coming off like this huge pissing contest. And you don't really get to see the magnitude of what that kind of behavior, what it promotes, until, you know, you're watching a movie like this, and it's like you said, there's just a bunch of angry white political men.
Mm-hmm. I did like the wall aspect of that when the Egyptian dude made the or was he Arabic? I don't know. When he made the wish and that wall popped up. Like that's obviously not thinking forward. Like that's a wish that you did not think about, because they were talking about how the poor communities were cut off from their water, and just the huge division that made. Like I thought for me that was really a good example of not being able to understand the gravity of a wish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that scene. I don't know. Has anybody here read the Black Adam miniseries?
Which one? The one from 06?
Yeah, the one that Doug Mankey worked on.
The one right after 52?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, now the place where this guy was that we're talking about, which obviously they have it like on the border of Kemet, right? Because you see the Merkuti in the background. Merku is the real word for pyramid, right? Pyramid is a Greek word. But that the place where he was talking about, you know, I guess where he was from or whatever, that was the place when Black Adam, when Isis and Osiris, and those are the names I'm using because that's the names.
Vialia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's place where he went in. You remember when they got killed and he went
Yeah.
looking for revenge, and he went into the country and he killed everybody in the country at super speed. Like he killed every individual person at super speed. That was the place where it happened at.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say to Sam's point earlier about dressing up a certain way. Paul earlier today on Twitter had a small non-spoilery thread about Wonder Woman 1984. It's like maybe what 3-4 tweets, and then some guy goes, "Yeah, but what's up with her outfit? That's subjectification, isn't it?" My response was, she was co-created by women. Uh, the movie was directed by a woman, and I would hope that in 2020 we're past the point of judging women for the way they dress.
Right.
What outfit in particular?
Just her regular outfit.
Oh, okay.
Oh, like
The Wonder Woman.
thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
her Wonder Woman costume.
Oh, okay.
Like, you're on mute, Sam.
Uh-oh.
Sorry. I think that comments like that are they're about as extra as they can get, because it's very obviously not meant sincerely. You know, it's like the dude who said it because he probably feels like women have been crying objectification forever, when the fact of the matter is, you know, that costume that we saw in Wonder Woman 84 is literally nothing but a symbol of what Wonder Woman was back in the day, because all of us in one way or another are connected to Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, not necessarily going all the way back.
Right.
You know, unless of course you're of an older generation, and that's fine. But yeah, I wasn't bothered by her outfit. Frankly, it was, if anything, it was less revealing than Linda Carter's
Mm-hmm.
outfit, because she had the skirt, and she had I know they were more shin shields than they were the heeled boots, but yeah, no, I wasn't bothered by the costume at all. And frankly, like you said, we're in 2020. If if Diana Prince wants to run the streets beating the shit out of folks with her boobs in tassels, that's what she's going to do, and that's what she can do. And you know, she's not asking to be objectified or anything. That's her comfortable ass kicking her uniform, period. So we don't even need to talk about that. Frankly, any guy who would bring that up, it's like, bro, sit down.
Right.
It's like,
bro, just sit down. Like, we don't even need to talk about that.
Right.
is one of those things, like that's how you know somebody is just, like you said, they're being disingenuous, and number two, they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Because objectification doesn't come from a behavior that someone exhibits
Right.
in regards to the objectified person. Objectification comes from the intent of the person that's doing the objectifying, and it's based in their
Yes.
particular perspective and worldview. So to speak to that, and it's common in indigenous African societies, children don't wear clothes until they hit puberty, and then they start to put on clothes, right? Because we didn't have this idea of sexualizing children's bodies,
Mm-hmm.
right? So nobody would look at a child and say, hey, you're objecting that child by allowing that child to be in a photograph, and when the child has no clothes on, you know what I mean? That comes from a more Western paradigm that ultimately has its roots in a patriarchal system in that sense. So or I should say patriarchal as it's filtered through Western societies, because there's indigenous societies all over the world that are patriarchal, but you don't see these things. So it's a particularly Western phenomenon. So that's also, so not only do you have to deal with people who are disingenuous, you also have to deal with people who just don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
It's true.
You know,
Yeah.
it can be a dangerous combination a lot of the times.
In native Filipino separate parts of the Philippines until about 100 years ago. Some women don't wear tops. Period. It's just not done until about 100 years ago when people were like, "Oh no, you got to wear tops."
Yeah.
Because we're a Catholic country. But
Wow.
that's and the way that the objectification works. I talked to Trina Robbins like early on in the history of this channel, and Trina Robbins was the designer behind Vampirella, which blew my mind when I was doing the research for it, because I actually thought Vampirella was created by a guy, because I mean she's clearly meant to titillate,
That's a bit.
right?
Yeah.
But like, so I asked Trina Robbins what was up, because I need, like, why, when is it okay? And she basically said it's almost never the costume, it's almost always the way it's drawn. So like, you could have somebody with a really revealing costume, but as long as you draw them dignified,
Right.
then it's a dignified character. But if you draw somebody like even a fully covered woman and her butt is hanging out and whatever, so it's the same thing here, because we've seen this Wonder Woman in 4 different movies, and she's basically wearing the
Right.
same thing every time, and she looks majestic, she looks awesome, except in one movie, which is Justice League, where there are literally frames that just focus on her butt.
Thanks, Snyder.
Right.
That's Whedon's fault. I just
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's yeah. Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see that. Yeah.
Closing thoughts. Let's do closing thoughts. Closing thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984. I'll go backwards. Paul.
I know I've been taking the mickey out of some aspects of it throughout this talk, but generally, I really, really enjoyed it. I'm going to watch it again a lots of times, I imagine. I think any sort of like little problems I had with it can be sort of summed up by it should be a shorter film. And I think if it was a shorter film, all those little details, like the inhabiting somebody else's body thing, like the sort of the wrong person getting the redemption arc, that kind of thing, you wouldn't have time to think about it all if it was a more fast-paced film. And I think that's a good thing, because many of the threads in this film don't reward you thinking too deeply about them, but that's fine. I think that's fine. There's a place for films like that. I just think if it'd been a bit shorter, a bit more fast-paced, then it would have worked a whole lot better. And you probably could have got some more kids watching it, which would be lovely, because Wonder Woman, kids love Wonder Woman, But generally speaking, I really liked it, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to watch it again loads.
You know what? I think you made the comparison. It reminds me of Superman 2, which also can get really ethically dicey with a super memory wiping kiss at the end. But that's the whole thing for me, is that like in 2020, I feel like we should know better than this. So that's the thing. If this had been a movie that came out exactly as it was many years prior to this, I think I would have been okay with it. But right now, I'm not. Is where I go with it. But I do love all the batshit insanity with her powers, though. That was fun. LaMar.
Okay, for I give my thoughts, Paulie, what did you say about taking the mick or whatever? Like,
oh yeah, taking the mickey, like making fun of it, like.
Okay, because I was getting ready to say you got to tell the folk what that means. We. Yeah, because it's always, whenever we do these tapes, it's always somebody's first time seeing what we do or whatever. Okay, appreciate it. But yeah, I think that the way they went about things didn't live up to what could have been. So I just kept finding myself like looking at what could have been, or not even what should have been, just what could have been with everything they had going, because they had all the ingredients for a fantastic film. But we did get a lot of good performances out of it. And, you know, the people who were the prominent actors in the film, they all did, you know, fantastic jobs of conveying their characters on screen with what they had to work with. And having capable actors is something that's kind of new in comic book movies,
Mhm.
where we go for people based on their acting ability. That's something that you know is kind of new. You will always have like a one person or two who are great actors, but then everybody else is just kind of like trying to find their way or something. But you know, I do like that in that sense, because all of the characters were played by actors who are more than capable. But I just think the execution falls flat almost immediately. And it just kind of like goes downhill. And there's moments where it kind of goes up and then it goes back down again. And so, but the parts that I enjoyed, I really enjoyed them. And just the stuff that I didn't like, it's like it just kind of took me out of the movie. And I don't like to have that feeling. I'd rather hate something than be ambivalent about it when it comes to like movies and things like that. So the stuff that I enjoyed, I really enjoyed it. And the other stuff I just really didn't care about. But at the same time, though, it's definitely a good movie. Like what Paulie was saying, how I think they should have, if they were going to do it the way they did it, they should have just went all the way with it and just made it a children's movie, you know, like all the way. I think if they would have done that, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about wouldn't have made it to the final cut anyway. So the movie would have been better for it. But as it stands, you know, I don't even feel like we're ragging it all that much. Just you know, it's just we're just dealing with what we were presented with, you know. And so, but the stuff I loved it. The rest of it, you know.
Monica.
I agree with LaMar about feeling ambivalent. I just remember having much stronger emotional reactions to the first film, especially the no man's land scene. I cried. I cried when she came up out of up that ladder, and you know she was taken. I mean that was an amazing scene. And I don't know, this movie. I got excited a couple of times. I got excited with the little Linda Carter cameo in the middle there, where you saw just her eyes. And I thought the fight scenes were great. I mean, the lasso stuff was awesome. I was cracking up because when they were having that first big fight scene with all the trucks and everything, she totally pulled an Indiana Jones Temple of Doom move where she was under the truck. Remember that? Yeah. So I was giggling over that. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, I enjoyed the lasso work. I just wish they would have let Kristen Wiig act. I wish they would have put more focus on her and her metamorphosis from, you know, just normal woman to Cheetah. You know, I would have liked to have seen at least 50% more Barbara Minerva and less of other guy. I mean, I love Pedro Pascal, but I don't know. I also, his wig really bothered me. But I'm sorry, Paulie, I'm not going to watch it again. Not right away.
Kristen Wiig is underrated.
Yeah.
I think she needs more and be able to do more in general.
Yeah, just if you get a chance, watch some of her sort of unknown little indie films. I mean, I think she'll really surprise you at just her range of just acting ability and emotions. I just really like her. And she's a great comedian.
Yeah, I think she's legitimately funny. Sam.
Okay, I remembered to take my mute off. So final thoughts. There are definitely a lot more layers than I had initially wrapped my head around. So I'm definitely going to go back and watch it again. I mean, I would have regardless, but there's definitely more to think about having discussed it with you guys. But still, that said, the movie did fall flat for me, and it's disappointing for me because I'm such a huge Wonder Woman fan, and there's so much opportunity to make such great content surrounding that character, and also surrounding Cheetah, and you know how Barbara became Cheetah, and you know just that that one comic I was put on alone made me realize that. So I guess if I had to give it anything out of 5 stars, I would probably give it a 3, because I did enjoy a lot. I enjoyed a lot of the fighting. I enjoyed the fight scenes. I enjoyed the lasso. I enjoyed the part, especially when she lets go of her inhibitions and she figures out how to fly. And I totally cried when she made the sacrifice and renounced her wish. And
But imagine if you
there
could
was
still
plenty
see
of love
him.
for that. And now I'm never gonna let that go. I'm never gonna
Right.
get that out of my
Never
head now.
gonna cry again at that one.
I'm gonna be cry laughing, similar to like, Harry Potter when Cedric died, and all I can do is laugh at how his father is going like ham on the crying. um, but yeah, I did like the movie, not as much as I wanted to, and not as much as I thought I would. But I will totally 100% support the franchise, because that's just what I would do. Wonder Woman has been a thing for me since I was a kid. To play off of what Monica said, that first movie for sure, I was in tears for most of it, because it was like, oh, everything that I've been wishing and hoping for as a kid, here it is on screen, and it's beautiful and it's breathtaking. And there wasn't as much of it in this one in 84 as there was in the first one. So, you can chalk it up to sophomore slump, like Lizzie put it, I'm sure. But yeah, I'll watch it again, and I'm looking forward to supporting more content, honestly. So yeah.
I've called the No Man's Land scene the best in costume debut on film
Oh yeah.
since Christopher Reeve Superman.
I feel like we could have a whole other conversation about it, because while it was an amazing debut, but also Batman versus Superman. Really, was I the only one that wasn't completely blown away by how she dropped and just started
Oh no,
wailing?
Batman versus Superman is a great 3-hour trailer for Wonder Woman. I agree.
Yes. Yes, I will support that statement. Absolutely.
Never let it be said that I don't see the positives in things.
So yeah.
Hey Lizzie, wrap us up.
All right. I liked it. I liked the earnestness of it. I liked the sweetness of it. Particularly with most DC movies, like there's so much darkness and so much angst and things. I liked that wasn't here. It definitely wasn't as powerful as the first one. I remember that first scene, and just to me, the first scene in the first Wonder Woman taught me about representation and about how powerful that is, and to see all of those powerful women. And it wasn't about the male gaze, it was about these powerful women being powerful. I kind of intellectually understood the idea of representation. That's when I really connected to it emotionally. That's when I was like, oh yeah, okay, I get this now. I definitely understand that. So it lacked that power for me, but that kind of was the point of the movie. It wasn't meant to be that. It was meant to be earnest, and it was meant to be, for me anyway, it was meant to be sweet and kind of a comment on, this is how crazy the world is getting. Look at how out of control things are getting, and wouldn't it be nice if somebody could step in and say, hey, let's have this giant talk, and let's sit down and let's connect emotionally and talk about how 2020 went off the rails, why it went off the rails, and let's maybe set everybody down and have that conversation with Wonder Woman about how things can be fixed. And I liked that. I liked the earnestness and the sincerity of it. Definitely could have used a little bit more editing and a little bit more tightening up, but I think those throwaway moments, like when Barbara and Diana were having dinner, and just chatting as friends. Those moments I felt were really powerful because it really connected to that humanity, and it really connected to that idea of them outside of these caricatures of Barbara morphing into this villain, and Diana being this, this Greek goddess. It was more about them just being, two women kind of connecting. And
All the more reason that she should have been the one with the redemption arc.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you were more invested in her emotionally, and she was a much more emotionally complex character than Mando was. Although I loved every scene of Pedro Pascal. I mean, he obviously chewed his way through the scenery, and he really committed to that, and I loved that. Like the wig and everything, to me, like that was part of it. That was straight part of him being like, yeah, and just really owning it. Overall, I really liked it, and I felt like, particularly with it being 2020, it was refreshing to kind of end on that sweet, earnest kind of feeling. I don't think anyone but Penny Jenkins would have been able to have kind of straddled that line. I loved the way that she did things, and I love having her at the helm. I really enjoy that, and I look forward to seeing more of that.
That's Wonder Woman 1984. Everyone, please click like, share, and subscribe.